Do you remember? Where's our training? Yeah, that's not me. Yeah, that's me. No, I don't forgot. No. Did everyone get a copy? No, I can't keep them all, Mike. Thank you. Copy? No. You have copy. Everyone have a copy? I got room for more. It's back a little bit. The day was down. So it's, yeah. When I want to sit here. Good? Yeah, I'm ready. You're recording. We're good. And we can start it. We can do like 3 1-hour sessions. Okay. All right. And I can get rid of this as it's recording, so we don't need it. Oh, phone's on. Phone's on. All right, you're gonna need a highlighter and a pen. Because we're gonna actually write these things down, so that when you're writing your offer and you have it in DocuSign or whatever program you use, you can refer to your own notes. If you can't understand your own notes, I can't help you. Okay. That's not. One is a highlighter, one isn't. Yeah, one's a marker. And they took everything away over here. There's also a sign-in sheet. Did you find another one? Good. Okay. There's also a sign-in sheet. So make sure you sign in. And I'll put my information up here. So if you need to get a hold of me, you'll know how. So if you need to get a hold of me, it's better if you text and say, call me. Or text me the question. But that way, because if you call me, I'm gonna send you back a message that says, can I call you back? So I'll save yourself the extra step. Just text me the question or say, call me, I have a question. And that way I can free up the time I need. You call me all the time. And you always I will always be there to talk to you. Yeah. I'm always there. It's easier for me. It's easier for me to do it that way than on, I can't stop what I'm doing to, like, even now when people text me, I have to say, I'll call you back. So that's my cell phone number. Save it. And that way you can get a hold of me at any time. I know you guys aren't Keller Williams. But you can still call me. Okay. Okay. Since this is what I'm teaching, and if you have questions, feel free to call me anytime. So you guys know that we have 2 market centers and a branch office, so there's over 400 agents. And I'm the broker for those agents. But like you said, I will always respond to you. I feel neglected when people don't text me, and I have no text message. Which is a good thing because I'm not worried about anyone, but I feel neglected. All right, so we're gonna go over the as-is contract. In about 3 weeks, I'm going to do a non-as-is contract. So these are 2 different contracts. They're both FAR bar. I just want you to start getting used to the non-as-is. The as-is contract allows someone to back out of the deal during the inspection period for absolutely any reason, such as, I don't like my agent. they can back up. And we lose more deals that way. Not that they don't want their agent, but we lose more deals with the as-is contract than we should. People did not spend their time and your time and escrow money to go look at a property and then they don't want it. If we allow them to get out, and it's not a matter of allowing them to, it's that they get nervous because it's such a big purchase. And it's very emotional. And they'll start talking themselves out of it. And we have to provide the confidence for them to trust the transaction. People will buy a used car all day long. They know it's gonna need repairs. It's got 1,000 moving parts. They're okay with buying used cars. A house only has 4 major components, but it's such a large amount of money that they get very, very nervous. So it becomes emotional. So this as is probably the realtor's worst enemy. But it's the one that everyone uses because it's the one you're trained on. And so because everyone's trained on it, everyone uses it. One of our agents was in here this morning. He had 3 closings that fell apart in December, 1.5 million in closed transactions. All 3 of them fell apart during the inspection period. It's because it's holiday season, they were getting nervous, they didn't think they were doing the right thing, they're hearing about the stock market, they're hearing about politics and stuff, and like, oh, I don't want to do this. Let me think about it till next year. And that's exactly what we're providing them. So we're gonna do the as-is, because that's 90% of your deals. And then we're gonna go a more advanced class on the non-as-is contract in a few weeks. I just have to find some time to get it in. Okay. The first thing I want you to be very careful and conscious with. Now, we only use state forms. Yeah.
Can I get a copy of the?
No. Anyone else? I just. Make sure you have a highlighter. The one thing that we use is we use state forms, so you don't have to worry about anything. There are hundreds of contracts out there in the state of Florida, hundreds. Because a lot of companies create their own contracts. If they create their own contracts, then as a listing agent, I have to read every single line to protect my seller. Because the buyer's agent initiates the forms. The buyer's agent provides you with the contract. And so as a listing agent, if I don't see a Florida FAR bar contract, which it tells me at the bottom, Florida FAR bar, Florida Realtors FAR bar, for FAR Association, as is 6 Rev 1021. That's the one that we use. If it says anything else at the bottom other than FAR bar as is, then I have to read the lines. So this one I know, but if you give me something else, I'm gonna have to read it to protect my seller. Buyers agents initiate forms. You do all the forms, all the addendums, everything. If you need help with something, then you talk to the other agent and say, what do I need? Can you help me? Whatever, but you start the process. And if you leave something out, it's, I wasn't gonna say it quite that way. It's your fault.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very careful with all the forms and addendums and provide everything, because if you don't, you haven't protected your buyer. And the listing agent, don't give me, so I'm gonna be listing agent all the way through this process, and y'all are gonna be the buyer's agent. You don't send me all the forms, you give me an excuse to go take another offer. Right, I can say, you didn't send me the lead-based paint, and I got another offer, that's complete, I'm going with that one. Right? So don't give the listing agent a way out. Make sure your forms are complete. I don't like blank lines. I don't like anything blank, because if something's left blank, somebody could fill it in. So you're always gonna fill in the blank lines. Just be complete, just do your job, right? You're making a lot of money for these things. You know, a $500,000 house and 3% commission is what? It's not a lot of math here. It's 3% and 6% of anything. So $500,000 house, 3% commission, $15,000. I can show a house, write the offer, go to closing and buy a new car. I don't think 15,000 will get me a new car, but
Down payment.
I'll just have to sell for you then, right? So you want to make sure that you're matching the right contracts. There's another contract called It stands for C. Contract for residential sale and purchase.
It's
Chris?
CR.
Contract for residential sale and purchase. Bless you. Chris, CRSP.
Right.
So I call that a CRISP, we all call it CRISP. The CRISP addendums and contract cannot be mixed with the FAR bar. They have different line items. If you give me a FAR bar contract and a CRISP addendum, I'm sending it back. It's garbage. They don't match. You just nullified both sides, the addendum and the contract.
What's the name of that contract?
CRSP, it'll say CRSP at the bottom, or contract for residential sale and purchase. So if the addendum, if you're using this one and the addendum says CRSP, you can't use them together. Never, and in our office, never use a CRISP addendum. Never use a CRISP addendum. So if it's an addendum and it says CRSP, never use a CRISP addendum.
I'll never use a CRISP button.
If it says CRSP at the bottom, never use it with the FAR bar. They do not mix. They refer to different line items in the body of the contract, so it no longer works. Okay, are we good? All right. Now, I'm not gonna read everything to you. I'm just gonna tell you what notes to put in there. So how about the seller? What do you think I should put in there? Now, I'm the listing agent, you're the buyer. Do you know who the seller is? Do you know who the seller is?
Yes, you go to Papa.
You can get it out of IMAP or Pappas, right? You can go to IMAP because it's right
It's
on the
click on
screen,
it.
yeah, right there. But if you're still not sure,
We call to the listing agent.
then you can call the listing agent or put seller of record. So it's the real seller's name as per the deed, which you can get off of the tax roll. Or if you're still not sure, because something's funky there, put seller of record. So it's real name according to tax roll or seller of record. The word seller of record. Yeah, if you're not sure. If it says something weird, and you're like, I don't know, this doesn't make sense, put seller of record. Now, if you look at the tax roll and you look at the deed, or if you look at the deed. And it only has a spouse's name, but you know that they're married. You only put what's on the deed. If you need to add something on afterwards, we can do an addendum, but only put what's on the deed. Don't put the wife's name on there, it's not on there. Though, because of the spouse, doesn't have to be the wife, it could be the husband. The spouse could have purchased a house and the other spouse is not on the deed. But they have to come to closing and sign the release. They have to sign the mortgage document because we have to release them from their homesteaded property. So if there's a wife involved, then you can text me. As I'll say, leave it the way it is. When the title company comes back. Siri?
Siri.
To me all the time. I know. It's always listening. Oh, she's always listening.
So I have a property that's going on the market within the next couple of weeks, and it's like, it's a young couple, but it's the son's name and the mother's name.
Whatever's on the deed,
Okay.
whatever's on the deed. When the title company, you can get a pencil search up front, they'll tell you. But when the title company starts their process for closing it, they can correct you and you can do an addendum. Right now, we just match the deed. And if we're not sure, seller.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
To me, it happened like that. It wasn't the deed one name, I put in the deed, but then the listing agent told me, can you just correct the name because it doesn't appear in the record yet, but they
Yes.
sent me the whole thing and then we just put it, fix it.
Do an addendum, yeah. Once the contract is executed, do not go back and make changes on the contract. Do it on an addendum, because we need to follow that paper trail. So once it's executed, everything gets on an addendum. Your buyer, if you're the buyer's agent, do you know your buyer's name?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Passport.
Ask for a driver's license? Sure. Ask them how they want to take title, right? Because you might be calling them by one name. And their driver's license or how they want to take title might be different. So for the buyer, even though you're the buyer's agent, you need to ask them, how do you want to take title? You want what's on your driver's license, or do you want something else on there? You have to ask. You know, my thing about my investor. So if you've been in my class, you've heard my first investor was when I was about 3 years into the business, and I was so happy I had my first investor. And then we were looking at 4 houses, and so the first one, when I wrote my first offer with him, we actually did it in a conference room. And so I said, so Bob, what's your last name? Is it Rob, or is it Rob, Bob, Robert? What's your name? He goes, oh, it's none of those. And I'm like, well, what's your name? He said, Raj Kumar Patel. And I'm like, why am I calling you Bob? There's no one can say Raj Kumar. And I'm like, oh.
Now you know.
So I'm like, oh, now I know your name, Bob. So you have to ask, because there's no way you can go by what you were calling them, which is pretty cool. Property description, you need the address. Put the address in, and you need the county, and you need the property tax ID, and then you need the legal description. The most accurate place to get all of that is either IMAP or Pappas, I don't care, IMAP comes from Pappas, it just changes the format. So you want to get that, don't get it off of the MLS. Do not take it from the MLS. Agents are lazy, and the listing agent may not have all the information in there, and it may not be correct. MLS is not always correct, and MLS is not a contract, so don't take anything from the MLS. Get it from the source.
Yeah, I'm also.
IMAP, yeah, get it from the source.
I'm not.
Oh, well, IMAP is a tab when you're looking at the listing.
Okay,
It'll say detail map, IMAP.
yeah, okay.
So hit that and it'll take you to it, and if that's not got enough information for you, hit the blue link
Okay,
of the tax ID on top, and it'll take you to Pappas.
okay, thank you.
And Pappas is the property appraiser's office. But IMAP should be sufficient. Okay. My favorite part. Oh, the definition of real property and personal property. So in here it says personal property unless excluded below, excluded, or the terms of the contract. So personal property unless excluded or other terms of this contract, the following items which are owned by the seller existing on the property as of the date of the initial offer are included in the purchase price range. So when you go look at the property, you should, so the first time you show the property, the buyer's like, oh yeah, that's nice. When you go there a second time, you need to have your notes with you. I usually write on the MLS printout. So, so here I would know what's going to be included because I'm looking at my MLS printout and whatever notes I wrote. And so it says range, oven, refrigerator, dishwasher, disposal, ceiling fan, light fixtures, drapery rods and draperies, blinds, window treatments, smoke detector, rubber opener, thermostats, for both television wall mounts and television mounting hardware, which to me is the same. Security gate and other access devices, mailbox keys, storm shutters, storm protection items, and hardware are all considered personal property. What's left out? Washer and dryer is left out. So in here, other personal property to be included, add your washer and dryer, because if you don't, you're buying it.
Microwave.
Microwave is missing, water heater is missing. Microwave, washer and dryer. If there's a pool equipment. If lawn equipment's going, add lawn equipment. Look, whatever your buyer saw on that walkthrough, you better have made a note of it. And if it's of particular interest to the buyer, then you need more information. So if it's a real elaborate light fixture, you want to mention the room that it's in and the light fixture, because trust me, that light fixture will be replaced by a light bulb. Right, it happens. And what the buyer sees and what the seller replaced are always thousands of dollars apart. I do a lot of foreclosures, and I want to say it was Olympia, Black Diamond, one of those places. And did you need me? Okay. And it was a 2-story house. So when you walk in, the stairway was there, and it's 2-story, and they had a gorgeous light fixture 2 stories up, right? Because you're walking in, you look up and you see this beautiful light fixture. And so I was a listing agent, The other agent didn't mention anything special, and even though it says light fixture. My seller left the light fixture. He took out the $5,000 chandelier and put in a light bulb. It's a light fixture. And so the other agent was really upset. So the other agent said at the walkthrough, I'm at the closing, I'm at the title company waiting. And she calls me up and she goes, the light fixture's gone. And then she sends me a picture and it's a light bulb. And I'm like, I thought it was funny. I was really upset, but I thought it was funny. Now, I'm not gonna be mean and say, you didn't specify. I wouldn't do that. I called up my seller. Oh, and I said, told the buyer's agent, I said, if I can't get the light fixture back because it's walkthrough, and I want my check. If I can't get the light fixture back, what's it worth to your buyer? And she goes, 5,000. So I called up my seller and I'm like, he's in Washington DC. I'm like, what's the light fixture? I'm like, I said, so the buyer's there, the light fixture loosely is included, ribbon cleaner, but, and I said, the buyer wants $5,000 for it. So what do you want to do? He goes, I only paid $1,200. And I'm like, yeah, but they want 5,000. He goes, give me an hour. It's 3 o'clock. He goes, give me an hour. So I told the agent, I said, come back at 5 o'clock. So they got 2 hours, because I'm still the title company. And about 4:30, they went back and the light fixture was there.
They're good to get it by.
It was back. I called the seller up, I said, okay, all good, light fixture's back. I'm like, just so I know, where was it? He goes, oh, I sold it to a neighbor. He put it right back. I put it back. 5,000, he put it right back.
He did.
I mean, that's ridiculous. But as soon as I told him the amount, so for him, it was 1,200, for the buyer, it was 5,000. Well, not that much money, it was like a $400,000 house. But still, it makes a difference, right? So you gotta be specific. If they have high-end appliances, mention it. Don't just say range, because they'll leave a range. Right?
So let's say, like you said, the washer and dryer is not included in.
You gotta handwrite it in.
But let's say somehow we both forget that to put it into the contract, both in D and in E, what happens then?
So we go to closing and your buyer's like, does the walkthrough and there's no washer and dryer, right? You forgot to put it in. Who's buying it? You,
Okay.
know that $50,000 commission, you just lost 3,000.
Okay.
Because do you want to lose the whole?
Yeah, I just want to.
Walk, and do you want to lose the whole 15,000 or do you want to buy them a new washer and dryer?
Right, and you, that's right.
And by the way, it's a used washer and dryer, it's not new, but I would still say 3,000, right?
Why is washer and dryer excluded? Why isn't it included?
No, but in Florida, we always leave washer and dryer. Everywhere else in the country, they don't leave anything. They take the stove and fridge, but in Europe, they take everything. So they're specific about some things, but not others. Like, does every house have blinds, window treatments? So I would cross that out because I don't want those things. Now, anything that you cross out has to be initialed and dated by all parties that are in buyer and seller on top. So if I get real clean and cross out draperies, blinds, and window treatments, like I typically cross it out, I need initials and dates on from all buyer and seller. Initial and date. So if you cross anything out on here, initial and date. But everything else I'm gonna add in here. What I'm gonna ask you not to ever do is put in as per MLS. Don't do that. Don't do it. MLS is not a contract. It's an advertising and marketing tool. And we can change MLS on the fly, so don't put as per MLS. Be specific. You're making a lot of money to add a couple of words. Be specific. What's a really high-end fridge? I looked at one that's 23,000. 0? Should they go for 15,000? Okay, so this says fridge, right? Is there a big difference between the Sub-Zero and the LG?
Yeah.
So you're gonna put Sub-Zero fridge because we can replace it. With a little white stove from Craigslist. Which would be really tacky, but. So you want to be, if it's important to your buyers when they walk, if they walk through and they go, oh. I want to know what they're wowing about, right? So you really gotta watch your buyers. Remember, it's caveat emptor, it's buyer beware, and that's you.
So here's a question, I was with a buyer the other day and the listing agent said this big 72-inch, 74-inch TV is included.
Right, and
And so he's all excited, but if they're getting finance, I've also been in deals where the lender would say, get that off of there.
no, you can put that in here. It
Okay,
has no value.
okay,
It's only if it has value, like if you say I'm adding the furniture for 10,000 or putting if it has no value, put it in. It says personal property is included in the purchase price and what?
has no value, but he still made me do it because the underwriters.
Well, then you gotta take everything out.
Yeah.
Just, everything has to come out there.
When you say initials, if we cross something, it is we cross like three things, has to be three initials and 3-day sign.
If it's in the entire section and you cross out three things, it's just per section,
It will be has to for section initial and day sign.
must be dated,
Okay.
must be dated. Yeah,
But with-
because I wanna see if it's done before or after we executed the contract, if you put in something afterwards, I will personally find you. But it also invalidates the contract.
How do you protect the landscape, like, there's a palm tree there and then they take it out when they'll leave it?
I would put that in the last, on page 11 where the lines are.
Okay,
Yeah, I would put that in there. I would put pool equipment in here. Hurricane storm shutters are already included. Pool equipment, I would just say pool equipment. And if you wanna get really fancy, you might wanna put heater and all those things. It really it depends on the value of what it is.
okay, cause I know it says thermostat, so is that the air conditioning unit?
That's air conditioning units.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't have to mention plumbing or anything like that, what they see, but those are there. Now, if there's things that are not conveying at closing, like, someone will say, oh, that's not. I had a house and it had an old Mustang, a '67 Mustang in the garage. And was on here and she asked me, say, the Mustang is not included. That's pretty bad. I wouldn't have included it, but after I thought about it, I should have put it was included. But if something is in the house that's not being included, we definitely want to put that in there. That it's not being included. Cool. Alright. Any questions? And Linda's gonna follow up with me afterwards if she has to answer these questions.
Do you have examples of what usually is excluded? I'm just,
Chandeliers like that.
Okay, real high-end chandeliers or something, or personal, artwork, which. Yeah, I would be specific about, I would say artwork.
What about those mounted TV stores? Because everybody's mounting their
It's
television.
included,
It's included, that's.
television wall mounts, and mounting, the only thing you have to add is the TV.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's included, they made
And you
another
have to
change.
explain that to your sellers, because sometimes they don't know. and
The
they
listing
don't say,
appointment.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly,
Yeah.
because they thinking, that too, but I bought these things, but yeah, but it's included in the contract.
And we all learn things the hard way, cause
Yeah.
mine was the washer and dryer the hard way, I had to buy it for somebody. That was a long time ago. It was the front load on the pedestal, I didn't know the pedestal was so much money. So it was a burgundy, really shiny burgundy, probably had car stripes on the side, it was really beautiful. And I didn't mention it in the contract, so the other agent. No, I didn't say it wasn't excluded because I was the listing agent and the other agent just put washer and dryer. I didn't say that one was excluded. The buyer and seller got in a fight, and so the seller moved with the washer and dryer. He left the white one in there, all rusty and everything. He left that until I bought it. 2000.
When they think that the furniture is negotiable, like, the buyer could also buy the furniture. Does it include all the paintings, all the details, if the seller wants to do so?
Okay, other personal items included in this purchase are, see exhibit A. If it's not an addendum, it's an exhibit. Now, my problem with that is if there is a price to it, we can't include it here. It needs, it has to be a separate document. A sale document between buyer and seller, and I can't get involved in it. And then you need an inventory, so I say see exhibit A, which is a sales contract. For whatever you want to include, and then it has to be detailed.
Each item with the price.
Each item,
Yeah, it's happened to me with one house.
each
The
item.
listing agent said it was the buyers, the listing, the seller doesn't live in here, but they want to sell the house like,
As is.
some stuff.
Same
But
is
they-
happening now.
And she take a picture for everything and put the price, and then my buyer decide what she want, and then I send them a picture, we want this, and they just buy, sell. They sell to the seller.
It's a separate purchase
It's a
agreement,
separate-
otherwise, because they have to pay sales tax for Florida. And we
Mhm.
don't sell that kind of stuff, we only sell the house, if it has no value, fine, if there's a value, we can't be involved in it.
And if, sorry, if the people that are coming to this for the showings are interested in some pieces, they can purchase them after we finish the.
Let's do the sales contract, and then we can figure out what they want to sell, just, I would kind of, I'm not saying, so I'm just saying, that's what I would say to the buyer. I'm like, write down the things that you want to purchase, and we'll, and I'll get it to the other agent, but let's get the house secured. Yeah, so I kind of divide it up real quick, and I'm like, cause otherwise you're gonna pay sales tax, I can't collect sales tax, because I'm lazy, and so, cause I'm lazy. It's a separate thing, but if it has no value and you wanna have a list of it, I put exhibit A, because it already says it has no value.
But sometimes in the MLS says turnkey, something like that.
Turnkey,
Uh-huh.
I still have to, if it has, turnkey is no value, so it's okay if it's cash. Nobody cares if it's cash, and it's all included, but if it's financing, the lender's not gonna pay for it, they can't finance furniture.
Right.
That's why you gotta be careful, so if it's cash,
Okay.
it's okay, you can include everything and it has no value, you might have paid
And how-
600,000 instead of
And how
500,000.
you handle if it's my buyer want to keep that house?
If it's all included in the price, that's fine,
If it's by
so there's a
financial.
whole other slew of issues that you bring up with that, for instance. If it's a $500,000 house and it's 600,000 because of the furniture, what's my commission based on?
600.
No,
500.
500, it's
So-
the house.
I would wanna get all that cleared up, so that's a whole other subject. So if there's financing, it has to be on a separate bill of sale. If it's non-financed, it's a whole other thing, you have to contact them separate.
But if the seller's throwing it in right from the beginning.
No value,
No value,
fine, it's in
Furniture
there,
has no value.
right,
cause it says it has no
Yeah.
value,
right.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. All right, let's get to the price. Now, this is gonna be kind of cool because all these numbers have to add up to this. All these numbers add up to this. That's the easiest way to do this. So, let's say the house is 500,000, and it does not include the closing things, right? It's just the purchase price, no closing anything. So 500,000. Okay, that's our first thing. So that goes on line one. Remember, I don't like blank lines. Don't leave a blank. So then it says, what's the initial deposit? And you gotta check one, it either accompanies the offer or it's to be made within no blanks. So if you like 3 days, leave it 3 days. Now, I won't write an offer without money.
Yeah, exactly. What's the point?
We write this, I want money. There's no 3 days with me. That's my personal thing.
How you do right away in there.
I want the money right away. What can happen in 3 days if I don't have the money?
They
They
go
can
to
pay
another
another
house. They back up.
Cause they went to look at a house. You wrote all this up. How long does it take to write the offer up? How long? 45 minutes? Yeah, it's a little bit of time. And you put, I'll get it within 3 days. They go home. Their cousins, aunts, maybe daddy, mama. Has a real estate license. Like, oh, cancel it, I'll write it for you. You've never had that happen? Will,
I've never heard of that happening. Oh
It-
my gosh.
25 years, it's happened. But if you're gonna go buy a house, shouldn't you be getting me some money? Go for the, I know all of you are gonna do 3 days. It's fine. It's fine. So if it's made within, don't leave it blank, fill it in. And then in here, it wants to know who's got the earnest money. Who's got the earnest money? Whoever holds escrow, right? We don't hold escrow. You're with William Ravis, you guys hold escrow? Don't know? How long you been licensed?
I haven't had a sale with Rowan.
Oh, okay, have you been with other companies? What's your name?
Betsy,
Betsy Ann?
Lizzie?
Lizzie, Betsy, okay, Betsy and Lizzie. So, our company does not hold escrow, our title company, Level 10, holds escrow. The escrow holder is not the same as the closing agent. It could be, but it's not. Because when I first take the money, I don't know who the closing agent is. I really don't care who the closing agent is. I just want to take money. So I always put in Level 10. Because they hold escrow, we don't. So this is an escrow holder, not a closing agent. Don't get it confused, but if the listing agent argues with you. Just change it. It's not worth the argument. If they don't understand the difference between an escrow holder and a closing agent. So be it, I can't train the other agent, and I'm not arguing it. If they say, that's not who's closing it, I'm like, yeah. Well, I want you to change it, okay. Like, it's not worth the discussion, but they're two different things.
But when you change it, it will be like a date. They will hold it, the escrow at that time.
Then we have to write the escrow
The
to the
escrow
other
for the
place.
next to get, okay.
Okay, so let's say earnest money is $10,000. And then you fill in all the other information. Next line, additional deposit to be delivered if left blank, or leave it blank. But, make sure that you fill something in. If your inspection is 10 days, make it 10 days. But typically I make this, that if there's any additional monies, I coincide it with the end of inspection.
And the end of the
Yeah, so I'll say, so whatever the inspection says is what I put over here, because I figure after the inspection has been done, we should be able to give you more money if you're gonna give you more money. So let's say they're gonna give you another 20,000. For a second deposit. And I match this with the inspection period.
Okay, that if he.
So would you write like within end of inspection or?
Nope, I want days, don't make me have to calculate things in here.
Okay.
That means if you put 7 days in.
You put 7 days here.
in there, okay.
Yeah. Or add a day if you wanna add a day, but I make that so tight. That it's like, okay, inspection's done, let's get some more money. But don't put words in here like end of inspection, or there's another one coming up, don't put words in, because.
Number.
We can't count days and we don't know how to do math for events, so don't put those
Oh, yeah.
things in there.
We need to have a math for my things in there.
Okay, so we have
Very 30.
financing. Don't give me percentage, because y'all can't do math.
Yeah.
Give me the actual amount, so you calculate the math. So let's say we're doing 80% loan to value. What's my financing? What's 80% of this? 100,000? Okay. 100,000.
Yes.
Oh, wait, no, 400,000. My financing is
Yeah,
four.
exactly.
Wait, I can do this. 400,000.
And you give it.
Okay, I can do that. So my financing is 80% and that would be 400,000. Don't put 3.5% or don't. It's too much to figure out. Other, you could have, some seller financing in there, which is a purchase money mortgage. You could have, oh, I'm gonna add a car in here. You could have anything of value in here. you would just list it. So we're not gonna put anything in there, so what are we gonna put on the line? On line 40? Zero. No blank lines. Okay, balance to close, not including closing costs or anything, just balance to close. 70? Okay, let's add these up. 70, 470. Oh, you're fast, 500,000. Add up, comes to 500,000. There's your math. And that's why I don't put a percentage in here, because I can't add it up. So for me, balance to close is 70. Does that make sense? Cool.
Question, so like, let's say you put a car in D,
You gotta give it a value.
okay.
Yeah, you still have to give
So
it a value. just-
how would
It's
they,
not, it's never gonna happen.
but because I've
I
heard
think
that,
that's that
stuff like that happens, so like.
We throw it in for free, yeah, it's not gonna happen. It's just thrown in for free. Buy this house, not the one next door, I'll leave you the much.
It's- that part, it can be included like if somebody give it to you like a gift.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
There's the
Okay.
value. Yeah. Okay, so this would be conventional 80-20, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. If it was FHA, it's probably 96.5 and 3.5?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do VA.
Done.
This is the same. How much down payment for VA? The loan amount has 0 requirements, but I still need down payment. So let's put some money down. Let's put 5,000. Because you, as the agent with the buyer with the VA loan, want to convince me, the seller's agent, to take this off the market. I'm not taking it off the market for 0. I need some kind of escrow. Right? Right, I need escrow, and then nothing here, so it's still 500,000. And then no second deposit. What's my loan amount?
495.
VA, 500,000 is the loan amount. Nothing in other stuff, and what's cash to close?
Zero.
No, minus 5,000.
Minus, because I told you this has to add up. It wouldn't add up. He gets his 5,000 back.
It's just for that transaction.
Because he gets 100% financing, and he gave me 5, so I have to add this up to 500,000. So this will go to his quote, he still has closing costs, it'll go to his, he won't actually get the 5,000 back, it'll go to 5,000 towards his closing costs. It'll be a credit, he's got a credit of 5,000, does that make sense?
Yes.
Might want to take a picture.
No, right.
Okay. All right. We got all the way down to the bottom of page 1, and we're not even nearly done. We have 12 pages. Okay, time of acceptance. And this has two sections. It says time for acceptance of the offer and counter offers and the effective date. It's got 3 things in this little paragraph. So it says, if not signed by buyer and seller, and an executed copy delivered to all parties on or before this date, this offer shall be deemed withdrawn and the deposit returned. So we put a date in there. Typically, you've been to the house at least twice by now. Would you be able to tell if the seller lived there? If you've been to the house twice,
I
you
can say
can tell if the seller lives there, right? Because if it's vacant, it's vacant. So when I call the other agent to let them know that I'm sending an offer, I'll ask them, do you have access to the seller, like quickly? They're like, oh yeah, easy, they're really good. I'm like, okay, then I want my response in 2 days. I want it in 2 days. So if today is the 3rd, 4th, then I want this by the 6th. If it's hard to get a hold of them, or if it's like 5 sellers, I'll add a day on it, but not more. I'm not gonna let it go over the weekend. Because it gives me, the listing agent, too much time to get other offers. I don't give the listing agent time. Now, I won't argue with them, but this is my initial offer, they haven't countered. So if this isn't all done by the 6th, we can rescind the offer. It's deemed withdrawn and the deposit shall be returned. Unless otherwise stated, time of acceptance of any counter offers shall be within 2 days the counter offer is delivered. So if I put 2 days here, but they countered me tomorrow, I have another 2 days. I have another 2 days. That's saying I have 2 more days. Once the counter offer is delivered, we can keep on going. I don't have to, don't change this date. It's almost automatic. So don't worry, as long as we're talking and negotiating, you don't have to change the date. If the other agent disappears on you, we have to do something. So I gotta find out from the buyer, do you want me to pursue this or do you wanna drop the offer? Because the offer is gonna be dropped in 2 days. Right? And the final counter offer is the effective date. So the last time we agree to something and everything gets signed, sealed and delivered, that's our acceptance date. So some people call it ratified, some people call it executed, but that's the date of acceptance. Is after it's been signed, sealed and delivered. So what's delivered mean?
Both parties, you have the contract and you send them to them and they sign it onto you and everybody knows
How are you gonna do that?
by when you send the document.
How do you send it?
By DocuSign,
DocuSign is not sending a document,
by email.
email. DocuSign means they signed it, it doesn't mean they have a copy delivered.
And they send.
Because even after they sign it, doesn't mean they downloaded it, it just means they signed it. So after everything is signed, send them an email, congratulations, we're under contract, a copy is attached for your records. Just do it like that. So I'm in court, don't like going to court. And my agent sent it through DocuSign. And the couple sitting there claiming that we abused the elderly. Because they didn't send them a copy. And so the agents on the stand. And the other attorney is like, did you send them a copy? He goes through DocuSign. No. Did you send them a copy? And he's like, yeah, through DocuSign. And the other attorney goes, yes, I understand they signed it through DocuSign, but did you send them a complete executed copy? No. I'm done. Nothing I can do. I can't stand up and say, oh yeah, but I can't. Because the old couple sitting there saying that we abused them. We know better. The couple didn't. We're the professionals. We have to make sure that they get it. That's our job. We make $1 gazillion a year. According to everybody. So, delivered. According to everybody. So we have counter offers and effective date. Closing date. The closing of this transaction shall occur when all funds required for closing are received by the closing agent and collected pursuant to standard S, and all closing documents required to furnish to each property, to each person on this date. What a date. I know we always teach, and we put honor before. You don't need to honor before. You can just put a date. Why do we put honor before?
Because they think if you can maybe, well, they think if you can maybe change the closing day earlier and.
If you put honor before, do you still put a date?
Yes.
And who gets these documents? Who lives with these documents?
Title,
The title company.
Who else?
loan officer,
Loan officer, financial,
Me.
you,
lawyer.
okay, lawyers.
Lawyers,
You
yes.
don't see what the honor before.
No.
They have to put the stuff on their calendar. You know what they put on their calendar? The date. If you can close early, you've got to send everyone a notice saying we're closing earlier. You don't honor before doesn't mean anything. Because you can't just show up and say, hey, we're closing early. You can't.
Right.
Nobody's ready for you. So you don't need to put it on there. Doesn't mean anything. So you put a date, if you can close early, you still gotta notify everybody involved that you gotta close it, that you wanna close early, and you do that on an addendum. Because they're only gonna go by. It's almost like it's invisible ink, they don't see the owner before. They put the date on their calendar and that's the day they're working. So you don't need it. If it makes your buyer happy, put it on there, but it doesn't mean anything, cause if you change it to state, you still gotta let everybody know. Just like if you extend it, so just put a date.
So if it is gonna close a little earlier, you do go ahead and put together an addendum.
I do an addendum because I have to let everybody know.
Right,
And anytime you issue an addendum, if it's executed, you have to send it to all parties, not just the buyer and seller, right? Other agent, title, everybody needs to know.
to know that they are.
Insurance, I just copy everybody. Cause all these things have to happen on that day. Extension of your close date.
That's my expertise.
We have this down to a science. If you need to extend the closing date for any reasons other than the buyer's financing not being available. Anything other than that, if you need to extend it. Then use the MLS form to extend the date, do not write a blank addendum. Use the MLS form to extend the date. And the MLS form has about 5 or 6 reasons and other on it. And so if you extend the close date, if there's financing, you also need to extend the commitment date. So if there's financing, you change the top 2 things. You put an X in the close date and an X in the commitment date. They're the first 2 things on that form. I think it's the first 2 things. Always extend both. Because if you extend the close date and you didn't extend the commitment date, your buyer will lose their deposit.
So if you need to extend it for any reason.
Use the form, use the change form, MLS, I don't know, some kind of a change form.
MLS change.
It's not MLS, it's the, it's an addendum.
Oh, it's
Extension addendum. CR something.
Space, I think it is. Yeah, sí va a ser un cambio.
En el final, sí, es en noviembre.
It's an extension.
Yeah.
So you have to change
Has to be.
If there's financing
yes.
and you extend the close date, extend the commitment date.
Has to be extended for the commitment, for the closing.
If it's cash, you don't have to worry about the commitment.
Yeah, it's just if it's financial.
Financial is the problem. Now, if it says the closing funds from the buyer's lender is not available on the closing date due to CFPB issues. Because you know you need a 3-day gap between, you get a clear to close, and then you have 3 days. If you don't have the clear to close 3 days, you have to find out why. If it's the bank, because of CFPB requirements, that needs that time, you don't need to write an extension, but you have to talk to the lender and the title company will tell you. We didn't get the documents in time, we can't close in 3 days, I don't have a clear to close, not gonna have it. Especially with holidays, you gotta be careful. Then you contact the lender and say, is it because of CFPB requirements, because you didn't give me a clear to close, or is it for another reason? You need to know. If it's another reason, we need the extension. If it's CFPB, you don't, because you have 7 days past closing, if it's for CFPB requirements, which is the clear to close document. You'll have to ask questions. I can't give you the answer. I'll tell you to go to the lender. I always go to title first because they know.
everything.
If they can't close, they'll tell you why they can't close, and they're honest. So you don't need to write the addendum, you could, but you don't need it because we have a 7-day clearance for that. So long as it's for that reason. If the event happens during a time of force majeure and you can't close, then we have to extend it as needed. So what's force majeure? Hurricane. So there's a whole section, there's a whole standard, standard G. That tells you what force majeure is. So I'm gonna go to standard G. just so we can finish that section.
I had my first force majeure this year.
Did you?
Oh, seriously? For which one
Hurricane.
did you recommend?
Okay, there's a section here called standards. And it kind of gives you a breakdown of everything that's mentioned earlier. It'll always tell you what's standard, and force majeure is in G. There's G, E, F, force majeure. So force majeure, buyer and seller shall not be required to exercise or perform any right or obligation under this contract, or be liable for damages so long as performance or non-performance of the right obligation, or the availability of services, insurance, and required approval if they're disrupted, delayed, or caused or prevented a force majeure event. So if something happened and there's no electricity and the title companies and the banks can't open, that would be a force majeure. You're not gonna default on anything. You don't have to discuss escrow. We don't have to do anything. It's automatically force majeure. We can't even provide an extension because we don't know when it's gonna be fixed. But that would be an unavailability of something that we need to close. Does that make sense? It typically has to do, I mean, the whole building disappears, not worry about it. But it's typically loss of power, floods and things, but it says force majeure. Force majeure means, and they added so much onto this. Hurricanes, floods, extreme weather, earthquakes, fires, and other acts of God. This they added, unusual transportation delays. Pandemic, remember? I don't know what that has to do with a closing, but can't close. Wars, insurrections. So what do we have in the last 3 years? Transportation delays, wars, insurrections, civil unrest. This is all in 2 years. Acts of terrorism, government actions and mandates, government shutdowns, epidemics or pandemics. This was all added in. It stopped before, right after acts of God. None of this was in here. The force majeure event will be deemed to have begun on the first day of the effect of the force majeure and prevents the performance, non-performance avail. Anyway, you just can't perform. It's kind of funny when we looked at it, because this was revised in 21, and we're like, where did all this? This used to be like this much, and now it's I'm like, whoa, insurrections, that was so cool. Especially since it was done a year before it happened. But they added all those things in. Now, the thing about hurricanes with us is between, was it June 1st and November 30th, we have to be really careful that there's an insurance binder, that the inspections are done, because a lot of times we can't get that done when we're in a storm. So, but we always remind you at our business meetings, I'll say, hey, it's, you know, if we have a storm, it's 5,000 miles away, but go get your insurance binders. Right, so we always remind you guys, so don't worry about it. But that's what force majeure is. Yes.
What if the going to labor have a heart attack? How does that? work?
That's not a force majeure.
Oh,
Yeah, you just go to the hospital and get them to put a big X on there and then. Here, let me help you with that. No, I'm just joking. Actually, I'm not, but, it's not considered force majeure. It is an act of God, but it's not a force majeure. So if something like that happens, right, we've had 3 or 4 in here.
Oh, seriously?
You guys you just had one recently.
Yeah, we
The
did,
buyer died.
yeah, we had one of the buyer.
Oh my God.
The buyer went on a cruise and she, that's like a few days before it should have closed. She went on a cruise, she fell down and died. Yeah. But
How do you want to describe the money? I'm just.
the seller had already bought another house, freaking out, so then he got like $100,000 less than the previous.
And it's not funny, but it happens, especially
Yeah.
South Florida.
I'm going to
Yeah,
my
so-
first exam for my real estate. When was the middle of the storm?
Yeah.
And they were open.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they didn't notify me, they know, so, but I'm gonna go anyway, and then the rain and the storm and the wind, and I went in and they said, oh, we have a little flicks, the lights are on and off, don't worry about it. I was like, oh, okay. I passed my test. And there are a lot of government buildings don't close.
Um. So as long as there's power and everything, now, for a test, it's a little different, right? But for a closing and stuff, you just have to be sure that there's power.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the only thing. So that would be a force majeure. Okay, are we good on that? Any questions? You're still gonna have questions. Occupancy. Unless 6B is checked. Seller shall at closing deliver occupancy and possession of the property to the buyer. Free of tenants, unless that next thing is checked. Free of occupants and future tenancies. Also at closing, seller shall have removed all personal items and trash from the property. And shall deliver all keys, garage door openers, access devices, codes, whatever, to the buyer. If occupancy is to be delivered before closing, buyer assumes all risks of loss to the property from date of closing. And shall be responsible and liable for maintenance from that date, and shall have accepted the property in its condition at the time of taking occupancy, which is a pre-occupancy rider by the buyer. So you don't have to mention on page 11 what the seller has to do, it's already described, you don't have to put anything extra. It does go on later on to describe all the terms of how the property should be left for the walkthrough and the closing. But the day of the closing belongs to the buyer. So everything has to be turned in. It's very unusual. We're one of the few states. Usually the house is delivered at close of escrow, which is 3 days later. We're one of the few states that we want the keys. You need to be out. We have that moving truck, and if we don't close, oops. You could have a moving truck out front and my buyer doesn't show up, like, oops, sorry, go back. It happens. It happens. It happens when the cell is completely packed up, completely moved, and the buyer disappears. We had 3 of them last year. All of them involved divorces. All 3. Well, one had, no, 2 of them had girlfriends. Remember? Yeah. Yep. Yep. One of them, the wife didn't know, she found out, and she's, I'm not signing it over. And she just went to Georgia, never came back. You lost $50,000.
He's still trying to get divorced, I heard.
Yeah, $42,000. Buyer, yeah, he lost it. It's okay. So interesting.
So whoever presented that contract are they at fault at all? Because you would think you would research and make sure the sellers both want to sell before you write.
He was the buyer, this guy was the buyer with his girlfriend,
I see.
but they had to sell their other house and the wife wouldn't sign off on it. So he lost the 42,000 he put on the new house with his girlfriend.
That's crazy.
3 of them like that.
I talked to with the agents that had that, and apparently he's buying new construction, he's still looking to get divorced. And every time that he's supposed to have the move-in date and new construction, it, you know, he can't, so they keep.
Oh,
They have a different house.
But like, he's still like, okay, married. Okay, stop 5 minutes. Okay, let's stop for 5 minutes. You're gonna stop the recording and take 5 minutes, run around the building and come back. I know.